Don't be alarmed. The quasi-shimmering light before you is a trans-dimensional gateway to other worlds, other voices, other thoughts, and other realities. Up feels like down, and down feels like the number 7 on a Wednesday morning. Don't worry. That quivering, blood-boiling sensation under your eyebrows is all a part of the charm. Welcome to the PCC Multiverse.
And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here from the Pop Culture Cosmos, Game Source, Inside Sports Fantasy Football, and the Lakers Fast Break. Truly appreciate you stopping by and checking us out on our weekend show. But it wouldn't be a PCC Multiverse without my returning good friend. First episode of the new year with my good friend indeed. He is the mastermind behind all of pop culture. Nothing gets by this man, indeed. It is, of course, my good friend. It is TJ Johnson. What's up, my friend?
Gerald, what's up, my guy? How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Josh and I, we've gone over our best of and worst of in pop culture for 2025. And on Monday, we covered the, most anticipated from us in the world of movies, TV, and video games. So I'm looking forward for you because this is a jam-packed TJ episode. We're going to get it all from you, all in one episode. You did this on purpose. You have personally avoided us for weeks so you could bunch it up for a TJ wrapped show.
Well, Gerald, here's the thing. When I wake up in the morning, I'm just kidding. No, it was not the intended purpose. But hey, I'm here for it, man. Let's do it.
Let's do it indeed. But before we get to your best and worst of for 2025 in pop culture, and before we get into your most anticipated of 2026, and if we have time, also a retro review from you, I wanted to touch on the major bit of pop culture that will be coming out over the next few days, because on the 18th, the latest side story in the world of Game of Thrones is going to be dropping here, and that's A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which it looks, it does have its ties to the Targaryens and all that, but it is a little different. It reminds me, now, hear me out. It reminds me of A Knight's Tale. It just has those eerily, ever since I saw the first trailer, it just reminds me of A Knight's Tale movie with Heath Ledger. I don't know if it does for you, but as far as, a guy that's looking like to become he's basically the guy that's cleaning out the stables at the beginning. Then he gets his chance and opportunity to go ahead and battle others in the arena as far as a knight. So I don't know. It was just giving me that same kind of vibe. I don't know how this really is a major important story as far as overall, because that's where I'm really not buying in that this is a must watch as far as how the Targaryens, how the whole story of Game of Thrones came to be. That's what I think I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, Gerald, I got to admit that upon looking at that trailer, I don't know what I feel about I don't know what I feel about this particular side story, if you will, from the series of A Song of Ice and Fire from George R.R. Martin. I, being a Game of Thrones aficionado, right, being that for 10 plus years, that was such a huge time for me that it's been interesting what life has been like post Game of Thrones as far as the world of Westeros is concerned. Obviously, the closest thing we have to it is this whole dance with the dragons and the Targaryens, and we've got all this stuff. But I think the problem when you have these kind of stories and these side stories that are all things that came before the main event or the main storyline of Game of Thrones is that depending upon your interest, depending upon your level of love for the source material is going to really dictate how well these shows are going to do. Some people are going to enjoy the shows just because they are spinoffs of a Game of Thrones, right? But other people are going to be like, why should I care about this show? Ultimately, this show doesn't have any. It fills in some details, but it doesn't really have any bearings on anything in the future because we already know what happens after this. It's almost like, okay, well, when they were doing Endgame, they kind of came out to Marvel and they came out with all these things that came happen before Endgame or before Infinity War. So, okay, we really don't care about that because we really want to. We're not really interested. So I say that to
Mhm.
say I am intrigued because it is another story in the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. But I'd be lying to you if I said I was super excited for this one as I may be for House of Dragon, I should say. I'm much more excited about that show continuing than I am this one. So yes, it's giving very Knight's Tale vibes. It's giving very Kingdom Come Deliverance vibes, where you go from nothing to something and rag to riches, if you will. Um, and I think it's probably going to be a nice, if you will, take on the world of Westeros, and a lot softer of a take on the world of Westeros, while still having some of the Game of Thrones action that we know about, that we know and love. It's definitely
Mhm.
going to be it seems to be a lighter take on it. And I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I just don't know if the audience is going to be here for it, if that makes sense. So I'm curious to see what happens. I'd
That's
much rather him finish the books than work on coming out with any more stuff that ties into it. Just finish the damn books already.
yeah, exactly. I mean,
But besides that,
I, I
it is
and
what
I
it
see
is.
his health. I see his health, and I just don't know how he's still alive personally.
Mm,
So I don't know. And he keeps telling us that it's going to be done. It's going to be done. It's going to be done. Books are going to. I hope so, because again, I'm worried about his future, George R. R. Martin, because again, you never know what's going to happen.
yeah, yeah. You don't, and you hate to think the worst. I hate to think the worst. But I also find myself to be very pragmatic in and not pragmatic, but very. I just kind of look at the take the word for what it is, and none of us are going to make it out of this alive. So if you can finish up the things that you need to finish them up, and don't don't wait on it. We don't know when the clock strikes zero. One of the things that, and we'll talk about this a little bit more lately, or a little bit more in a bit here, but one of the things that I was able to do over the course of the last few weeks, I rewatched a couple of movies that were my favorites. So we're gonna do our retro review. I already have my retro review in mind. Um, I think I talked about it on the show before, the movie In Time with Justin Timberlake and
Mm-hmm.
Amanda Seyfried. The beauty of that movie, and I use the term semi, not loosely, but my point is I know it wasn't necessarily critically received well, but it was actually a really really good film. And we're looking at it, we don't know how much time we have left. So do the thing that you wanted to do yesterday, today, or do the thing that you've been putting off, and don't continue to put it off because you just don't know when tomorrow's not promised. And none of us are getting out of this alive. So stop wasting time, Gerald. Stop wasting time. George R. R. Martin. Just get it, just get it done, please. I want to know.
Exactly. You and I both, my friend. But if you guys have thoughts out there on the latest Game of Thrones series that is coming to HBO, as far as what that will be, what that will look like, what you think it'll be about. But again, it was just for me. I just was giving me those A Knight's Tale vibe, maybe more a little more on the serious note per se, because A Knight's Tale was more leaning more comedy wise, but still,
Hmm.
it's got that same kind of vibe. And if you feel it's necessary to the overall Game of Thrones vibe, overall arc, then let us know. Please let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. I've said before there are other stories in the Game of Thrones IP I would rather tell. So
Hmm.
that's just me. But again, I ain't HBO. Uh, and again, HBO won't be HBO maybe for much longer, so we have to wait and
That's
see.
right.
So we'll see what happens there. But again, if you have thoughts on what's going on with this latest series from HBO in the world of Game of Thrones, let us know. Popculturecosmos at yahoo.com. But my friend, I said we would go ahead and make sure we give you plenty of time for both your best and worst in pop culture for 2025. and your most anticipated for 2026. So it starts off, let's go with the past, and then we'll go into the future. What hit you in the right way, and what hit you in the
Hmm.
wrong way for the year of 2025, my friend?
Well, let's talk about, excuse me, let's talk about the world of movies if we're going to go best and worst. So, my best of 2025 is actually, it took me a while to think about this. And the reason I say it took me a while is because I guess you don't realize how much stuff comes out in one year until you actually look at the list of stuff that came out in one year. Then you're like, wow, that was a pretty exhaustive list. So, for my best of 2025, I think my number one. I give you my top three. Let's just do top three. The top three movies for me that came out in the year 2025 are as follows, and this is in no particular order because I love them all. Okay, Zootopia 2. I really, really enjoyed Zootopia. From beginning to the end, I thought the movie was just well done. Um, I enjoyed the cast. I enjoyed the story that they told, and I really love the sub stories that they kind of tell. The little subtle, little subtext of all the other things that are going on in the world that they kind of put into these movies and kind of allow the adults who are there in attendance, obviously more or less for the kids, but gives them something to really chew on or really enjoy and have a much more nuanced viewpoint on. So I really, really enjoyed that one. I also really, really enjoyed Avatar Fire and Ash. I was very skeptical about Avatar. And I think you and I kind of talked about it. It's just, it had been so long. Then the sequel came out, and the sequel, while it was, it did dollars, it wasn't like this, it didn't set the world on fire, at least in my opinion. And I kind of felt like the magic was kind of gone because of what it was when it first came out versus what it is now. Everything's kind of a spectacle. The first one was a spectacle before there really was spectacles. And then the second one comes out and everything's kind of a spectacle. So it kind of lost its magic. When I tell you that Fire and Ash was good, it was really good. I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed for lack of a better term, the human elements that were being told in these stories. I mean, I know we're talking about blue aliens who are, 7, 8 feet tall and are super agile and whatever the case may be, but they were telling some really, really human stories with this movie. And I actually found myself really enjoying it and forgetting about how long of a runtime it is. I mean, it's a James Cameron movie. So it was going for a long time, and it's an Avatar film. So it was going for quite a while, but it didn't feel like it. It really didn't. And I actually enjoyed the time there. Um, and I think finally, out of my top three for the year 2025, it's probably going to be Superman. And I say this because, and you and I talked about on the show, it 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 gave hope, and that's kind of what the Superman character is supposed to be about. And it really did give me, as a fan of DC, as a fan of, as a potential, I don't know. I don't want to say champion of it, but somebody who is rooting for this new DC universe, if you will, this extended universe of DC to work out, and who doesn't know if James didn't know if James Gunn was going to be the right person for it. But if anybody deserves a shot, James Gunn was the person. It really did kind of give me a new sense of hope for the superhero movies, and particularly the DC films. In a year where Marvel films were very up and down, um, for everything you had good, you had something bad. For every Thunderbolts, you had um, something that was not Thunderbolts, something that was just not as good. So, point being is that Superman was actually one of the few films, even if it wasn't the greatest film, that gave me a sense of hope for DC and for the superhero genre in general. So, those would be my top three. Um, I think the funny thing about a lot of the films that came out in 2025 is that you had several that did over $1 billion. I mean, obviously, Avatar's still in the theater and it's done 1.23 worldwide. Zootopia did 1.65 billion worldwide. I mean, there's been a lot of really good films that came out in 2025. And I was actually, again, when you go back and look at it, it's like, oh wow, this is actually a pretty good year for movies in general. So those are my movies. Now, as far as my games are concerned, we've talked about these games quite a few times on the show. In particular, I'm looking at Split Fiction, another one of my top three. Assassin's Creed Shadows, one of my top three for the year. And for me, as a basketball aficionado, 2K26 was probably NBA 2K26 would be my top. Would round out my top three video games for 2025. Now, an honorable mention for that would be WWE 2K26 because I'm a huge WWE fan as well, and the gameplay was much more refined, much more polished. It felt good, it played good. The island mode was still kind of crap, but everything else about it was really really good. So those would be my top games and my top movies for 2023. Now, if we're gonna go into things that were not exactly the greatest, I had a couple of those too. I had a couple of those too. I
I would
think
hope so.
the
Well, wait, before you do though, since we're touching on the
yes,
wrestling
sir.
world, my friend, was there
Yes,
anything
sir.
that moved you, good or bad, in the world of
Yeah,
professional wrestling this
there were quite a few things that I would say moved me, good or bad. Yes. I think. Okay, all right. So now that we've gotten to this point with wrestling where we're kind of dropping we're we're, we're pushing the curtain back and we're being much more open to the world kind of seeing behind wrestling and knowing what really goes on, the way they tell the storylines, the how, the why. I think the great thing about that is that it really does allow you to appreciate professional wrestling as an art. And because it used to be not cool. It used to be not cool to be a fan of the WWE. It used to be not cool to be a fan. And I know that we're talking about a long time ago because it's been popular for a while. But you used to kind of get looked at like you watch professional wrestling. You mean a bunch of men in tights wrestling and fighting each other. You actually watch that stuff and you know it's not real, right? It's all fake. Yes, it's scripted television, just like any other scripted television you'll find out there, and it's done live in front of an audience. But there's a lot of theatricality that goes behind it. There's a lot of planning and there's a lot of production that goes into this as well. So it's not just men in tights fighting. There's other things that are at play here, and then there's also real danger with what these guys are doing and what these women are doing as well. So, anyways, with them peeling the curtain back and kind of allowing us to kind of have a much more intimate look at it, I think one of the great things about that is you can appreciate who they are and what they do on a different level than you could when you and I were coming up watching, professional wrestling. The downside to that is it takes away a bit of the mystery. It takes away a bit of the um knowing if these guys are like this in real life, right? I remember wondering, like, oh my gosh, the Undertaker really this like undead. Okay, again, I was a kid, so bear with me. But but you don't know who these guys are underneath the mask, and that was kind of cool to wonder who they really were, or how they got down, or if they were really friends, or if they really just didn't like each other. And if you ever seen them together, and if they ever ran into each other in the real world, what would happen? Um, so the lines didn't get blurred anymore. The lines are completely erased, and now you can kind of just see through it. So I thought that was good and bad. I thought, and the same thing for in the world of good and bad. I thought the John Cena farewell tour was both good and bad for a number of different reasons. You and I have talked about ad nauseum on this show as well. Um, I also think that the whole merger with, and I don't know if this was late 2024 or early 2025, so I could be getting my timelines mixed up. But the merger or the bio of WWE from the TKO group, I think that was a great thing because it really kind of put them in a position of having a spotlight. But it was also a bad thing because when somebody else owns you or owns your company, then they kind of call different shots than what you feel like maybe the company would have called. And I kind of feel like for as much as Vince McMahon is not a perfect person, I feel like there are a lot of things that Vince did that were good for professional wrestling. I feel like there were things that Vince would have done differently than what is being done by the current regime. And good, bad, or indifferent. I kind of feel like the product got a little bit diluted, having to go to different channels to watch different events and different things. And if I want to watch the American Saturday Night Main Event, I have to have Peacock. And if I want to watch Raw, I have to have Netflix. If I want to watch SmackDown, I've got to have Hulu. Like there's just so many different streaming platforms that I have to log into to watch WWE programming that it makes it very, very difficult to do so. So I think that's kind of a good and bad for all of professional wrestling. Is like, yeah, these things are really good, but then there's the downside to a lot of those as well. So, um, yeah, 2025 was a very interesting year for wrestling, professional wrestling as well.
Once again, it is TJ Johnson along with me, Gerald Glassford. Thanks again for watching. You're listening to the best and worst of pop culture for 2025. And then, of course, the most anticipated for 2026. But that's a little bit later. Right now, we've heard the good with TJ Johnson. All right, my friend. Make sure you really stick the knife in this one because it is now time, I think, for the bad in pop culture for 2025.
All right. Well, since we're going with just since I've been doing top threes, I'll keep it to top threes. That way we
Well,
don't
you can
drag this
take
out.
as much. I mean, you've got 40 minutes,
man.
my friend. So, man, you tell me. You got all day if you want, man. It's up to you.
All right. Okay, copy that. So, if we talk about games, and when I say that these are going to be the worst games of 2025 for me, I'm looking at it from a critical standpoint. Some of these games are going to be the worst games and still sell. Some of these games are the worst games and still sell the best. Some of the games that were the best didn't sell enough, right? So it's with these kind of lists, you have to remember that they're subjective and that everybody's not going to agree with all of them. I think there are a couple that we would all agree completely missed the mark, but I think there's going to be some nuance in there. So take from that what you will. And I also forgot to mention that side scrollers once again were a huge thing of 2025 as well. Absolutely loved almost every side scroller that came out, except for the Double Dragon revival. That was crap. That was like bad, bad, bad crap. That was like everything good about Double Dragon, and they just flipped it on its head. It was terrible. It was. I'm so upset about that. I was so looking forward to it, and I was so mad. But I digress. All right. Worst worst games of 2025 outside of Double Dragon Revival. I'm thinking that we're all going to be in agreement on this first one. Mind's Eye. So there was potential there, and I didn't really know what to expect of it. I really didn't, but there was potential there, and I was intrigued. And then the rumors started to come out about production and the things that went on behind the scenes, and you and I talked about them, and it just became very like even before it came out, you and I were both very much like I don't know, like it's starting to give me some vibes that are not really in line with what a good game release looks like. And sure enough, Mind's Eye, I think it ended up with like a 28 on Metascore. Like I had a Metascore of like 28 or something like that. It was bad. It was bad. I played a little bit of it just to say I played it, just to say I put it in. Thank goodness for GameFly subscription because I would be upset if I paid good money for that. But yeah, it wasn't anything to write home about, Gerald. In fact, it was a buggy mess, and I'm sure that they patched it up after that. But the fact that we're still talking about releasing games and then turning around and patching them up later, to try to make them better, is absolutely crazy. But it's what we do. That's what the gaming industry does now, and so we kind of have to just roll with it, unfortunately. Um, I think the next one, as we already talked about, was the Double Dragon revival. I had really, really high hopes because the 2D success wave had been so great with Shinobi and Ninja Gaiden, and they even had a revival of old cult classic in Nintendo as far as oh my goodness, Shadow of the Ninja. They had a revival of Shadow of the Ninja as well. It's just really, really good 2D. So I'm thinking like this Double Dragon revival is going to be great, even with the last Double Dragon. Um, it was a great side scrolling game. So I was expecting great things from Double Dragon Revival, and it was just the exact opposite. Everything was slow. It put on spectacle over gameplay. Like it just was not. I was just really shocked, man. I couldn't believe that it took such a massive step backwards with that franchise, considering how good the last release was. So very, very disappointing. And I think that I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about how disappointing Call of Duty Black Ops was. And I think again, I'm not going to be the only one that feels that way.
No, you're not.
It, it,
And the sales reflected. I'll just leave it at that.
yeah, it's not. It didn't do what it needed to do, and so
And it
much
lost
so
out
that they had
to
to put out a
Battlefield.
statement. Yes, it
Battlefield
did,
beat
and
out
it
for the
should
year.
have. Battlefield 6 was a much better game. So it absolutely should have lost out to it. And had it not lost out to it, I'd have felt a little bit salty at the player base for making that such a great for making that poor game beat out a great game in Battlefield. But yeah, I think Call of Duty, and it really goes to show you that quality really beats quantity. It really does. And when you put out quality product like a Battlefield 6 or like a Split Fiction, that's what gamers are looking for. That's what we've been looking for. That's what we've been pining for. That's what we've been desiring. We've been desiring something that feels like it's a breath of fresh air again. And it's also inevitable when you're that big and you put out that much content, you're going to falter. You're going to take swings and misses. And what I'm hoping, as we talked about, what I'm hoping that it does, it gives them an opportunity to say, okay, let's stop and reset instead of continue to pump out game after game after game annually. Let's stop, reassess, look at what works, look at what doesn't, maybe look at some post-launch um, add-ons, additions, tweaks to try to really nail it so we know what the next game is going to look like, and maybe look at coming out with those every 2 or 3 years as opposed to every year. So I'm really hoping that they kind of looked at it. I know that it doesn't look like they probably will, but I'm hoping that they decide to uh, decide to really reevaluate and say, okay, yeah, this 2 year window or the 3 year window might be what's best. Obviously, there's a lot of other people in the room that try to force those decisions, so we will see. As far as films, I think the number one worst film of 2025 has to be War of the Worlds. I think that's easily the worst film of 2025.
You
I
didn't
can't think of
watch
one
it,
that was
did you?
worse.
You didn't watch it,
Yeah,
did
I
you?
had to try it.
I
Yeah,
told.
yeah, I tried. I tried to
Did I?
watch it. I
Did
know you
I
did.
warn you?
I know you did warn. I still had to do it.
I'm getting off the set
Would
now.
I
I'm
be
leaving the
somebody that
set
does
now.
pop culture? Would I be somebody who did pop culture if I didn't take the good with the bad, Gerald? I have to be able to say I've done some of that, and that was by far that was bad. Like that was
I warned
bad. Like
you.
the
I
product placement in
warned
there was
you.
terrible. I don't know what they were thinking. The fact that I
I
run,
warned you.
run, run,
I
run.
told you and described in advance. Now I was wrong. And I was wrong to say it was the worst thing I've seen this century because I thought The
Mm.
Room was made in 1999, but The Room was actually 2003. Now, technically, The Room is worse by ever slight
Mm.
margin over War of the Worlds, but
Mm.
The Room is so bad, it's funny and hilarious because of the acting involved, because those, for the most part, I'll say that they weren't professional actors. Let's put it that way. As far as when now
Yes.
they become
Yes.
infamous. But when you have a movie that all these years later, when it gets shown, people throw forks at the screen as part of the fun and enjoyment of it, then obviously it's taken a life of its own. So that being said, the worst movie trying to be serious movie is this movie, and I warned you. I
Yes, you
warned
did.
you as
But I
my
had to
friend.
know. I had to know.
I believe I said I
I had to
wouldn't
know.
wish this on my worst enemy, is what I was
You
quoted
did.
as saying on our show.
That is. Yes, you did. Yes, you did. I was
And you
there.
did it
I was there.
anyways. And you
I
did it
had to
anyways.
try it. I had to see. It's one of those things where it's like this is going to be an absolute train wreck. So I'm going to watch it and enjoy the fact that I know this is going to be a train wreck. This is going to be
If I
an
tell
absolute.
you you shouldn't go
Mhm.
over to the side of the bridge because the rocks are a little loose there and you might fall off, do you
Yeah.
check it anyways?
Well, are we talking about saving my life, or are we talking about watching a movie?
I think I
Of
tried to
course,
save your
I'm
life
not.
by not watching this movie.
Oh man, it was bad. Like even my wife was like, "This is just not good." And I'm like, it's not good. It's not good, honey. I'm glad you see the fact that it's not good. It's pretty terrible. But yeah, I don't have anything redeemable to say about that. It was just pretty bad. Um,
It's and the director was allowed to direct again. I think there's something coming up that's yeah, that's they're involved with that. I'm just like going, really? They made more?
really, they gave him another
Oh,
chance. That's
yeah, just
interesting.
oh, God.
That's interesting. All right. So, yep. Obviously, War of the World. We already talked about that. I still think that again, we're talking about 2025, and we got to remember exactly how long 2025 is. We had a lot of releases in 2025. Um, did you? And I don't know if you remembered this, but Madam Web was 2025,
Was it?
and
Are you
I think it
sure?
was. I'm almost positive, man. I mean,
I'm gonna
now I
look
got to
that
now I
up.
got to look it up again.
I'm looking up
It was
right
the end
now.
of 2024. End of 2024. I'm
Yes.
sorry, I'm off. It
Yes,
was
it
the
is
end of
2024.
2024.
You
The
cannot give this one a
end. Okay, I won't give that to 2025 then. I won't
because
give it to
I
2025.
think it was on our worst list or one of our
Was it
worst lists of
2024 worst
2024.
list?
Maybe it's that bad that it needs to go on for 2 years straight. So
Needs to go because we just don't see the growth anymore. It's just like that's like a career killer. That was bad. It was like
it's bad.
Catwoman bad for Holly
Yeah,
Berry. It was bad.
yeah,
It was bad.
yeah.
But anyways, um, I tried to watch Five Nights at Freddy's 2. That was bad.
Oh, I was in the
That was
theater.
also
I had
bad.
to go for that one. It was terrible. But I love my daughter, and
Yeah.
if you want to know, is
Yep.
your love for your daughter to the test. Go see FNAF 2, and I'll just leave it at that. But that was on my worst list of 2025. But yes,
Yeah,
that will put
that
your
was
love
pretty
for
bad.
your kids to the test. Yes.
That was pretty. It was pretty bad. And then finally, I tried to watch Playdate, and yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that.
Even
That's
I
that's all I'm going
avoided
to say
that
about
one.
that. That's all I'm going to say about that. It was a special kind of like there's bad and then there's Playdate bad. It was bad. It was bad. But I also I love Alan Richardson. I love him from the Reacher series. And I'm a fan of Kevin James. So I wanted to enjoy it. We were looking for something fun to watch. And I remember when we watched that Dave Bautista movie that was on Prime that came out a few years ago. I can't think of the name of it, where he was the secret agent. He had to work with this little kid. Um, and I should have known better after watching that. I should have known better after watching that. That these Amazon Prime buddy cop buddy type movies are just not buddy action comedies, I should say. They just don't seem to work well with Amazon Prime. And this was no exception. And I really do like Alan Richardson. Like I wanted him to be Batman. Now, as I look back, I think he'd probably make a better Eddie Brock. If we're gonna go like a lie, like another Venom, I prefer him as Eddie Brock versus Batman. But yeah, Playdate was bad, man. It was really bad. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, it was probably a solid 2, maybe a solid 2. Yeah, it was bad. As far as anything else in the world of pop culture, again, I know we kind of talked about professional wrestling, but I really want to emphasize that the merger was one of the best things and absolutely one of the worst things for WWE. I really do believe that because it's turned into a cash grab. There's advertisements everywhere. Different streaming platforms have different shows. Like as good as it was because it put a spotlight on WWE, and that's why it's part of the best of 2025 as well. It's also part of the worst because it really watered down the product as far as I'm concerned. Um, I wish that I wish that they were done differently for a lot of different things. We talked about John Cena's farewell tour. We talked about just the merger in general and what that's done for the consumer, the confusion that's caused for the consumer, the additional strain it's caused for the consumer in a time where we're already strained enough as is. It just made it very, very difficult to continue being a fan and continue to be engaged, I should say, with the WWE on a consistent basis. It makes it very, very difficult to do that because you just don't know where to watch what. You don't know what's going on with who because there's so many different things. It was getting a little MCU-ish with different things going on in different areas. And, there's things that are going on NXT that are affecting what's happening on SmackDown, things that are going on SmackDown that's affecting Raw. And There's just so much happening in so many different areas that I kind of wish it was a little bit more streamlined, but as big as it is, you really can't do it now. So it makes for a very interesting problem in WWE. Um, and then, like I said, with the farewell tour, I feel like there are a lot of things that could have been done differently. I don't necessarily have an issue with the final match, versus Gunther, or even the way it ended. I talked about that as well. But I do wish that they had done some things a little bit differently. And even now, being able to look back at it even more, um, you were able to get a lot of really good things with it. But as far as the storytelling aspect, which is a big part of professional wrestling for me, anyways, they really did drop the ball on that. That was very disappointing way to end 2025, especially with WWE and it being a farewell tour for John Cena.
Once again, this is my good friend TJ Johnson. Truly appreciate you joining us. I don't know how much longer he's going to be my friend after not taking my
Don't be
advice.
like that, man. I
hurt.
knew
I'm
what
hurt,
to
man.
expect. I knew what to
I'm
expect
hurt.
going into it. I did. I
I'm hurt.
understood. I understood the assignment. I understood
I'm
the
hurt.
assignment.
I'm hurt. But be that as it may, it is, of course, Gerald West. Thanks again for watching. Truly appreciate it. Besides the betrayal of always great thing in
not the
Halo,
betrayal.
my friend, there's a lot you're looking forward to this year. Not gonna say this upcoming year, but this year in pop culture. Josh and I went off on a list. I had a really long. I went 2 hours the other day in preparation for
Wow.
Monday's show. I think it was well over an hour that I went and looked and just to see exactly what I want. I'll give you an idea, but I'll let you go from there. I said on the Monday show that from right now till about May, there's nothing I want to go see out in the theaters unless it's the Lord of the Rings movies that are coming to theaters or a restoration of John Woo's Hard Boiled. That's coming to theaters. That interests me, but that's a specialty stuff. But there's no new movie that I'm like, I gotta go see it. There may be something I will change my mind on and go see it through, but starting May 22nd for me, or even earlier, if you want to say Mortal Kombat movie. After that, then there's a murderer's row of stuff leading throughout the rest of the year that says I am going to be at the movie theater. So that's me. But what was it like for you? What did you come up with stuff that you are looking forward to for the next 12 months?
Very much like you said, man. I think this is going to be, especially for big movies, it's going to be a hell of a year for them. I mean, starting in April, you've got two that are going to be big, whether you want them to or not. In April, between them, the Mario Brothers Galaxy film, that's like February. That's like April. I want to say like 3rd or something like that. And then, and you and I talked about this. Even at the end of April, you have the Michael Jackson biopic. That's going to be big just because it's Michael Jackson and because there's going to be opinions and controversy about who plays them and how well they did. And yeah, man, there's going to be
talked
stuff
about
with
the
that.
nose.
So we did. We talked about a lot. I think that's going to start this whirlwind of stuff for movies in 2026. Obviously, I know you got Scream coming up in February and whatnot. So that might be, a nice, I don't know, whatever. It's Scream. May, like you said, is really where things kick off. And listen, I am a huge fan of the original The Devil Wears Prada. I loved it. Anne Hathaway was amazing. Glenn Close was amazing. I love that film. And I'm not a huge rom-com guy, but I really love that film. I really, really loved it. So I am looking forward to The Devil Wears Prada too. I really am. And that's supposed to be early May. And then as you mentioned, Mortal Kombat comes out. Mandalorian and Grogu, gonna be a big deal. And then in June, it gets ugly. June is like back to back to back. You got Master of the Universe, you got Toy Story. You end June with Supergirl. You start July with another Minions movie. Then you go into Moana. Big ones coming out in July are obviously the Odyssey, which you sent me that trailer for, and I was like, oh, this actually looks like it's gonna be pretty good. And then ending July with Spider-Man: Brand New Day. It's gonna be a big summer. It's gonna be a big summer for 2026. Street Fighter coming out in October. Uh, the Hunger Games, I'm not too big on that, but I think the biggest thing, and I don't think I'm going on a stretch by saying this at all, is obviously there's a little movie coming out December 16th to be exact.
18th.
Um, 18th, excuse me, 18th, and
There's two
I think
actually
it's
technically right now
titled
in the books.
really.
I'll tell you in a
There's
sec. Go
two.
ahead with your
Okay, all right, all right, all right.
little indie film.
My little ending one. So this little indie film is going to be something. It sounds like the Avengers. Yeah, I think it might be the Avengers. It's like the Avengers Doomsday. It's some kind of foolishness. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, with Sebastian Stan moving over to the Batman 2 as Harvey Two-Face, and
Yeah.
also, of course, Scarlett Johansson moving over to that movie as well for an unnamed villain, possibly Mrs. Dent, who in a storyline actually is a killer, literally a killer,
Mm.
but is supposed to be a bad person in that film. Maybe their time is short in the MCU. I'll just leave it at that. So I
Yeah.
know there's been sites like Emergency Awesome and others that have been speculating that, but yeah, you might want to put the two and two together on that one. But we'll see. We'll see.
I think it's fair to do that. I mean, listen, and especially you look at somebody like Sebastian Stan. He's been in the MCU for how long? Almost as long
As
as
Cap's been
uh,
alive in the
as Cap's
movies,
been alive. Yeah, yeah, he's been exactly. So
claw him
it,
out of the ice.
it's okay. It's okay for them to go on and do other projects and be parts of other universes. They've done their time, and I think we really have to get out of this idea that nobody else can do the role. We have to stop with that because comic book characters are ageless. They're going to be stories of Captain America well after you and I are gone. There's going to be stories of Black Panther and Superman and Batman well after the people that play these roles are gone. So we have to get into this idea that it's okay for somebody else to play a role. I know nobody's going to want to touch Iron Man once Robert Downey is completely done or semi done or whatever is happening with him. Once that's done, nobody's going to want to touch Iron Man, and it needs to happen. It's okay. Maybe you just don't focus on Iron Man anymore. He becomes a second list character, a B list character, like he was before Robert Downey Jr. made him a mainstream character, and you have somebody else lead the charge. Like it's okay, but we have to accept the fact that there are limitations on what humans can do, and there are not limitations on what comic book characters can do. And it's okay for other people to play these roles. So I want Sebastian Stan to go off and do other things. I want Angelina Jolie to go off and do other things. I want Robert Downey Jr. to go off and do other things. I don't want Chris Evans, though. I don't want Chris Evans to go off and do anything. He can be Captain America until he is 90. He can be
Fair
old
enough.
man. He can do that.
I did mention to you that there's another movie scheduled as of now on that date.
Mhm.
That's of real good importance. That's Dune Messiah. I know that you're not a big Dune guy,
Yeah.
but for
Okay.
me, the Dune series has been tremendous. I really
Okay.
think it's one of the best first two films I've ever seen. And Denis Villeneuve will be coming back with the third, and as of now, is scheduled on November 18th. Keywords as they used to say with the pay-per-views, subject to change.
Subject to change. TBA. Subject to
Mhm.
change.
Mhm.
So yeah, as far as my movies, those are my big hits. As far as my games, I've only got a couple really big hits for the year 2026, but there are some huge ones. Obviously, Grand Theft Auto 6, if it finally does come out on November 19th of 2026, then that's going to be a crazy day. But it's scheduled to come out. So as it stands right now, that's going to be my biggest title of 2026. Obviously, you've got 007, which I know you and I have talked about. Actually, looks pretty darn good.
Actually, I
That's
kind of
going to be a
spilled the
big
beans
one.
on that one, and I spoke for you that you and I had this previous conversation, and that we were actually looking forward to it. I don't know if you still are, but we
Yes,
were looking at that
I
time
am.
for more forward to it than GTA 6.
Yeah, at the time, yes, just because it's gonna be it's something that's gonna be a little different, and it just looks. I like this whole he can't pull his gun until he officially gets the license to kill, but he has to do his homework first before he gets the license to kill. Like there's some mechanics that I'm really gonna kind of dig into. Reminds me a little bit of Hitman ish. with just the way he has to be able to
IO
maneuver.
Interactive. They're the company
Interactive,
that's
yeah.
making this game.
That's my point. That's what's got it's got some Hitman vibes to it, man. So I'm digging it.
Apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Let's just put it that way.
No, it does not. And honestly, I'm gonna enjoy the the re-release of Tomb Raider, because I am a Lara Croft fan. I remember playing the original Tomb Raider and even Tomb Raider 2 and getting the butler stuck in the refrigerator in the pantry. I remember doing all that. Like that was I have fond memories of that stuff, but I also be lying to you if I told you I was able to actually finish those games because it was hard to play. I was playing on a PC, I was using the keyboard, and it just wasn't easy for me to play those games back in the day. I didn't play them on PlayStation, I played them on PC, and it was tough. So I'm looking forward to having the chance to play them. I've played all the new release Tomb Raiders, so the new trilogy, the Survivor trilogy, whatever they want to consider it or call it. I played every one of those and loved every one of those. I remember playing Angel of Darkness. I remember playing Tomb Raider's Legends. So I am a fan of Laura Croft. So I'm looking forward to her getting some other things to do, even if they're things that she's already done, kind of retracking, but kind of remastering it and looking a bit better for doing it. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Obviously, my NBA game, my 2K27, I'll be looking forward to playing that, even though every year it breaks my heart even more. The microtransactions become more and more prevalent. It breaks my heart even more. But it is what it is. We understand it's going to happen. So, um, those are my big games for next year as it stands thus far. I know Fable is supposed to come out at some point. I know Forza is supposed to come out. It's scheduled for 2026, but they don't have any type of real dates on them yet. So, as far as the dates that I know, at least are confirmed as it stands right now for 2026, those are what I'm looking forward to the most.
Well, awesome indeed. Any TV shows? The thing was that with Josh and I, kind of looking forward to
Oh,
Wonder Man, kind of looking forward to Daredevil season 2, but not 100%. And that's just because I think for us, it's more of burnout from Marvel television being on so many occasions so disappointing for us. And I think that's
yeah.
probably why we're both very trepidatious about both those series. Although I kind of like Wonder Man and what does bring out. Why does he have superpowers, and why does he say that he's not supposed to have superpowers? That he's trying to be an actor, and whatnot. How did this come to be, and all that? That we'll find out obviously with Wonder Man, but Daredevil season 2. I thought it was okay. Daredevil season 1. I really like the dynamic
Absolutely.
between, but
Yeah.
I think a lot of other people didn't hit as well as it hit on Netflix, which I think that's what the standard bearer is. This is like the homogenized version of Daredevil, so I think that's why it didn't hit as well. It's still over the top violent. It still has a lot of good things about it. So I went and see, but it wasn't one of our most anticipated for both of us. And I asked Josh why, because it just seems like, because he was huge into the Daredevil, and it seems like we're both very trepidatious going into that. And that I wanted to know if there were those you were looking forward to as far as TV shows, or if you had any TV shows in your most anticipated for upcoming this year.
Excuse me, Gerald. I have to admit that I'm not a huge TV show guy much anymore. Not a
Mhm.
huge TV show guy. I will say that while I'm looking forward to Daredevil, I it's not as high on my list as especially as well as Wonder Man because Marvel's track record just hasn't been great with with the television stuff. And yes, Daredevil was good, and I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I would absolutely love to see them continue that. I just it just it it's just I don't have the same warm and fuzzies about it as I used to. I don't
Yeah,
have the
I
same
agree.
level of excitement or anticipation as I used to. I don't know if there's a better way to put it other than that. I don't get the same warm and fuzzies that I did. So I'll be interested to see it when it comes out, but to say that it's on my most anticipated list, that would be a bit of a stretch for me.
Yeah, I can't say I blame you, my friend. I just wanted to gauge that because you, myself, and Josh, if we could all get in a room 7 years ago, let's say,
Right.
and say what are
Right.
we most excited for, and the
Right.
first word would be Marvel, Marvel anything.
Yes. Yes.
And now that
7 years
does
ago,
not
that
seem
was the case.
yeah. And right now it just doesn't seem to be the case.
No.
But yeah, just great suggestions there on what you're looking forward to, your most anticipated of pop culture. I know that there's a lot of stuff out there that people like. So if you guys have thoughts for the most anticipated games, though, I know that you and I and Josh, as Xbox lovers, hope for a real good deal. But I know that in Redmond, Washington, there had to been some, like somebody throwing a coffee cup at the wall when GTA decided to delay its game to November, because I know that it probably was a worse, if it probably was a worse idea for them, for Microsoft, when for how they're planning their year. They were probably planning for a spring release of GTA 6, and then they would adjust accordingly with
Right.
maybe Gears of War, of course, Halo
Hmm.
Combat Evolved. That has already been a guarantee. Fable, those games that are Forza Horizon 6, they were all going to skew around it later in the year. Now, a couple of these games are going to be showcased here in about 10 days or so from our recording in a developer's direct. But how do you think that has changed? Because these are all highly anticipated games by Xbox, but
Yeah,
their marketing
absolutely.
strategy, as you can see, the marketing strategy, the marketing strategy for Xbox, I would just, that's like a 5-hour podcast in and of itself about me
Absolutely.
trashing them.
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I would just take
Yes.
turns. You and I and Josh would just
Yes,
take
we
turns
would.
trashing. Yes, and how they helped to ruin the entire Xbox brand over the course of two generations. But be that as it may, what do you think that does with the announcement and pushback of, as of now, GTA 6, which is coming out on November, is it 19th? It's 19th, yeah, November 19th. As of now, TBA, subject to change without notice,
Right.
right there
Right.
for you. But how do you think that has changed the dynamic of what Xbox was looking at?
Oh, that's a very nuanced question, because the obvious thing about Grand Theft Auto is that people are curious about what the price is going to be. Some are saying that it could warrant a $100 price tag. Some are saying that they don't think it's going to be that high. I think there's a lot that goes into that. With Grand Theft Auto deciding to come out in the final part of 2026, I really do think that it puts Microsoft's plans on not a tailspin, because you have to do what you have to do. Um, but I absolutely would agree with you that somebody was pretty ticked off when they come out and finally said, yes, November is going to be the release date for it. And yes, that's what we're pushing for. And because, Microsoft's really hoping to have, other than Grand Theft Auto and the um, PlayStation really hasn't spoke about much coming out next year. And it's not to say that there's not anything coming out next year, but PlayStation's really had a tough time over this last generation, really, of putting out exclusives that have been hits after hits after hits like they used to. And I'm talking about, they used to have a hit every time with Uncharted. They used to have a hit every time with God of War. And not that they don't still have hits with those games, but they're just much fewer and further in between now. So I think Microsoft is really setting themselves up to be big players as far as the holidays of 2026, and as far as what that the gaming industry would look like for them. And I think Grand Theft Auto coming out and saying, yeah, so we're going to release at that time, really kind of threw them in a bit of a tailspin. I don't think you can really change those dates. I don't think you can try to push some of them up, but then it's going to look like a move out of desperation. And I don't know if it's better or worse to look desperate than actually being desperate. Um, so I think they either have to stay the course with those, or that they really have to delay those games until the following year. I think we're gonna see delays for Fable, Forza. I think they're all gonna get delayed until February of 2027, personally. That doesn't mean it's gonna happen. I believe that they are going to not push them up, but push them further back, just to get out of that release window for Grand Theft Auto 6, to be honest with you.
So, with that, my friend, we've come to a conclusion on as far as your great thoughts on the best and worst of pop culture and your most anticipated for this year of pop culture. But before we head on out, One more step back as we look back in time with 5 minutes left. The retro review from TJ Johnson.
of of In Time, the movie with Justin Timberlake and Amanda Seyfried. I think the release date for that was 2011, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's when the movie came out. A strong film in regards to this dystopian future where you age up to the point of 25 years of age. And then once you hit the year of 25, you have a clock that starts. And once that clock on your arm reaches zero, you are then deceased. You are dead. So you don't age past 25, but you have to maintain that time. And the only way you maintain it is by you work for time, you gamble for time, you fight for time, you steal time, whatever the case may be. It has so many different nuances that still are very, very, um, still very, very prevalent today, even in society today. And it talks a lot about the have versus the have nots, the rich versus the poor, classism, um, segregation as far as keeping the rich up top and the poor on the bottom, and the way the whole side. It's just it's an interesting film that really will. That's It's an interesting futuristic film, but it's really a film about sociological impact and where we are as far as society, where we are as far as a culture, um, where we are as far as the way that we look at society as a whole. And I think it was really, really well done for its time. Obviously, it wasn't the biggest spectacle of a film. I don't even know what the budget was, but I'm sure that the budget wasn't anything too crazy because it really was a very relative quiet release. I think the biggest thing to me, besides that film, was that they had Cillian Murphy in it, and I'm a huge Cillian Murphy fan. Pretty much everything he does, I'm all about. So the fact that they put him in that movie as well was really, really cool. I just thought it was very, very well done, very, very well acted, even for a young Justin Timberlake, who at that time didn't have a lot of acting credit to his name, but actually did a pretty serviceable job in that particular role for him. So I enjoyed it. My wife and I enjoyed it. We had just finished putting some stuff together in the house, and I found a random movie to put on. It happened to be In Time, and we had both forgotten how much we enjoyed that film, and ended up stopping what we were doing and watching the whole thing. So I got an earful for picking out these movies to watch, and not getting stuff done. But it was still a good time. So if I had to give In Time a rating, it would be 3.75 out of 5. Maybe maybe 3.8. Maybe 3.8. Not quite enough to be a 4, but still pretty good. Still pretty good.
You know that Amanda Seyfried girl? She's gone on to some decent things afterwards. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I
she
think so.
has.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
She's
And
doing
I
pretty
think
good.
Justin Timberlake did pretty good for himself afterwards as well. That
He's all
Justin
right.
Timberlake
Yeah,
guy.
not acting
Well,
wise per se, but he's always got that
no,
music
I
thing.
was
Yeah.
yeah, he's kind of got this kind of a, kind of a
Well,
big
but
deal. So
there's always work for the Trolls movies for him. So in
yes,
case the
there is.
music thing doesn't work out, but for her, she's gone on to some really good work, including right now still out of theaters, doing above expectation Paul Feig's Housemaid movie with Sydney Sweeney and her. And
Mhm.
there's possibility that it is done so well that they could be lining up a sequel for that movie. So we will have to wait and see. But TJ, it has been a tremendous honor having you back on the show. I love it because we've got a whole hour of TJ, which is really good for me with all of his thoughts on the world of pop culture, catching up with him on the best and worst for 2025 and the most anticipated for 2026. But my friend, any last thoughts before we head on out?
Mm. I am I'm anticipating the ramp up to Avengers Doomsday release. The multiple different teaser trailers that they've put out that have gone in front of Avatar, which was a great move, by the way, um, have really started to grease the wheels of anticipation for me in this film. And I haven't had that kind of anticipation for a Marvel film since Endgame. So I'm really, really starting to look forward to December. I've never wanted the year to go by so fast ever before, and now I'm looking forward to December to get here so I can see Avengers Doomsday.
I just checked. Amazon's War of the Worlds was a big streaming hit, so we could see a sequel at
No,
some point in time.
no, you're not. Shut the front door.
I'm just saying it dominated the charts. That's all I see as far as the ads, the articles are concerned. So hopefully that'll never happen. Hopefully its infamy will be that as far as its legacy. But we'll see. It almost divided a friendship between TJ and I, but we'll guide through it right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos. So for
It's
TJ
all
Johnson, they all love, my friend, all love indeed. But so for TJ Johnson, it is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day in paradise right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great day.
Don't be alarmed. The quasi-shimmering light before you is a trans-dimensional gateway to other worlds, other voices, other thoughts, and other realities. Up feels like down, and down feels like the number 7 on a Wednesday morning. Don't worry. That quivering, blood-boiling sensation under your eyebrows is all a part of the charm. Welcome to the PCC Multiverse.